Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Jesus.
What a professional operation this is.
You seem peppy today.
I'm not.
Oh, really?
Well, maybe I am. I actually had sort of almost what passes now for a good night's sleep.
Ah, well, there you are then. I did not, so you're going to have to carry my
that's
tired
just
carcass.
Peppy. Look at this glorious day,
Yeah.
and it's Friday.
Ah. Nice and cool for August. My mom, who's visiting from California, is bummed out that it's so cool, though. She brought all of her Pittsburgh in August clothes and not really
Yeah, I can't.
not really
that's
her
not gonna
Pittsburgh
work.
in late September clothes. So
It is something. I'll tell you, my favorite season has always been the fall.
Yeah, for sure.
And
why doesn't that surprise me? The fall.
if I'd said autumn,
Yes,
would you have?
I would not
Okay.
have said anything. Yeah,
Okay,
it wouldn't have worked.
has been autumn. I find it beautiful. I find the temperatures just perfect. And this is like, you know, maybe a prolonged fall. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how global warming apparently is going to make our climate cooler?
Yeah, so they say now.
Yeah.
You know, it's all just a conspiracy, a liberal conspiracy to prevent people from exploiting fossil fuels as God intended us to do, so I don't buy any of it.
Well, I think you're probably right about that, Potter. Hey, everybody. Hi, we're here. And we're sort of, I don't know about him, but I'm avoiding talking about the news of the day because it's not blue sky and beautiful weather. It's the opposite.
Ah, yeah.
Well, now we know the name of the cop.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
It doesn't tell me anything except that
Nothing.
he's
Yeah,
identified.
he was a 6-year veteran. That's
and
all I
he's
saw.
had no prior
Yeah.
disciplinary or
Yeah.
troubles.
Although in that police department,
What would you have to do?
that may actually be a bad sign. What you really want is a police officer who's been sanctioned for lack of enthusiasm about his work in that department. You just don't seem to have what we're looking for.
Man,
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. The only good thing that's going to, I hope, come out of this, because this has been, and people, you'll agree with me, right? I have been ranting for a long time about the militarization.
Yes. I think we've talked about it on this very program.
Right. So all of a sudden,
Yeah.
the country has awakened.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't take action now, there'll be more incidents
Yeah.
that will do it. And strange bedfellows are finding themselves together on this one.
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul
Yes.
and me.
Yeah.
And
Do I smell a fusion ticket in 2016? Secure those Pennsylvania electoral
no, I
votes.
mean, so I'm looking at this, a black congressman from Georgia has put something into the hopper that would, it's called Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act. But has Paul done this? Has he actually put something in the...
I don't know that he's done a legislative thing. He's talking
He's
about
calling
it.
for it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, he's gonna be a formidable national politician.
Maybe, except I don't know. You hear about. I mean, I don't really care about the impact of all this on Rand Paul's political career.
No, but seriously.
But I mean, I think he's been doing some of that. What they call flip flopping over there in the GOP on some issues about foreign aid to Israel and some other stuff in recent weeks. And I don't know that Republicans, as a rule, I mean, it's to his credit that he's being consistent about this. I don't know that Republicans, as a rule, really care about police overreach unless it involves fellow old white guys.
Exactly right. But so that's what's so funny. The cognitive dissonance and discomfort that this has to be causing in certain circles that normally love when cops beat up black people or kill them and see any resulting demonstrations or lawlessness as, and here they're seeing all their beloved, guns and their cops, and they're actually starting to think, wait a minute.
Yeah. I mean, contrary-wise, I would say what was that you
There's
just
a
did?
caller, and I was just telling you to stick a headphone on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, caller, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Lynn. Hi, Chris. How are you doing this morning?
We're doing well, thank you.
I just got in. I'm just watching you on the computer, so if you want to wave. Mr. Potter needs to put his headset on. There he goes.
Oh, you're a little behind.
Anyway, long and short of this, you were just mentioning about the strange bedfellows given the effect. Wave!
Gosh, how
coming in on in Missouri and so forth with Rand Paul and so on and so forth. Basically from the left and the right. And this is what's so amazing is I'm actually one of those ones with Rand Paul. I'm extremely conservative. And I, or more or less, I would say over there with the Tea Party, but we look at this as a member of the Tea Party, as I do, and I look at this as just the police, again, running amok. And we always look at what's this authority of government coming in with guns onto innocent citizens. And one of my sayings or something I always like to use when discussing these sort of matters is, who polices the police?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Who?
Absolutely.
When you're literally, they could come into your studio, arrest you, and you say, what for? And then they take you before a judge, and the judge says, Lynn, you're arrested for, killing 3 people and raping 3 nuns. And then you say, I didn't do that. And the cop says, well, we say she did it, and guilty. I mean, who polices the police?
Yeah.
And one of my biggest things I always bring it up, and anyone could actually, how could you not, they find it unbelievable that I say this with such
anger is remember the Central Park 5?
Yeah.
The 5 teenagers that were arrested for doing nothing by the police and convicted and sent to jail?
Yeah.
My blood boils whenever I hear about that. Here's the police, again, arresting 5 innocent teenagers, convicting them of a horrible crime in Central Park. They're sentenced to jail, and we only find out later through DNA, which proves to the point they were completely innocent.
Well, now, wait a minute. How lucky were those black teenagers? They weren't summarily executed.
Yeah, but they were sent to jail for something they did, for doing nothing
and
by the police.
And the scariest part of that is they were browbeaten into confessing. That's
right.
The part. That's the part that really, actually, of all of it, that's the most haunting to me, is the ability of police to pressure you into confessing to a crime that you did not commit, and that confessing to it will lead to a protracted prison sentence.
Well, let's hope that if there's anything good that comes out of the execution by police of this young kid, that it will be Americans, no matter what their political persuasion, rising up and saying the police have gotten out of control, they've run amok, and we're pulling them back.
Right, because it's just the fact that they're just who stops the police?
Right.
Well,
Who
that's a good
polices the police?
Yeah,
Good
and I'll tell you, and this probably will appeal to our caller, what I'm about to say. I mean, if there's cognitive dissonance on the right, there's also, let's be honest, some cognitive dissonance on the left. For us to see, for example, Eric Holder, our Attorney General, expressing concern this week about the militarization of the police. Where did they get that stuff from? It comes largely from the federal government.
Yeah,
because it's a lot of it's war surplus, or
now,
it's
you're saying exactly what the Tea Party would say. Here's the federal government coming in again, militarization, taking over.
Yeah.
Well, it's wasting. It's also the federal government wasting our money, going on a
frenzy,
a spending spree after 9/11, buying up everything they could, and then finding themselves with warehouses full of this military equipment, which they then just give freely to any police department that will pay the freight. All of this comes free. Well, thank you, caller. Nice being in bed with you.
No, thanks, Lynn. Well, let's see. Go Buccos. They need a little bit of help.
The other thing,
really.
The other thing about that, too, is you have President Obama saying the other day, reporters shouldn't be bullied, which is another just like...
Excuse me! You know, the First Amendment, guys, has taken it on the chin in almost every instance that it delineates. It is, and if the very least that comes out of this is that police, again, actually look like police.
Right.
That they don't look like soldiers.
Yeah.
And that we don't look like the enemy. This is insanity.
And in fact, they actually look creepier than soldiers. There's been a lot of writing about this in the past couple of days, that at the very moment when police are becoming more militarized, the military itself is becoming more like police in the sense that, that the counterinsurgency tactics that we've used to some success in places like Iraq, whatever, have largely stressed these ideas of, look, you don't want to be some faceless invader hulking down the street with your giant, stuff. You want to present a human face to the extent that you can. You don't show up at a protest of Shiites or Sunnis in downtown Baghdad and point machine guns and sniper rifles at them openly when they're simply
exercising their First Amendment rights as American citizens, for God's sake. And if cops don't know that people have the right to demonstrate, if cops don't know that reporters have the right to take pictures of them and catalog their activities, if cops don't know that they are subject to some authority, despite what the authority of the Constitution, for starters, then we need to do some serious re-education. And there is no reason in the world why any police officer in this country should wear camo. We don't even have to get into the guns and stuff. What are they wearing camo for?
First of all, they don't even blend in.
I know that
the buildings aren't covered like a forest in Central Europe or whatever that's supposed to be.
And you know what? You know what? Clothes make the man. Well, when you dress like you're in combat, and when all the accoutrements around you are military, it screws with your head. And the cops today do feel like soldiers at war. Yeah. And they have that mentality. And that results in a lot of innocent dead people. Yeah. And it results in, I remember talking about it. And you know what? Hello, white people. Are you getting just a slight sense of what it is to be black in America?
And it's not, and I mean, the thing I want to say about that too is it's not even something like this. Obviously, we're all going to pay attention to it, but I think there's a whole other side of this which builds up to it. How does this? I don't think it's just the camo, although I do. I don't think it's just the armored personnel carrier with mine resistant whatever, because we all know how big a problem landmines are in the metro area of St. Louis and other communities. I think you would have to telescope back years and probably a couple decades actually to the day-to-day kinds of interaction that happen.
Right.
I'm thinking about the 99 cars that have been an issue here in the Jordan Miles situation. These cars where the police kind of jump out and it's these surprise tactics. I'm thinking about the stop and frisk policies that have been in place, especially in cities like New York.
Yeah.
These are things that it's not just the day they put on the helmet and the vest. These are these kinds of day-to-day interactions between police and community, which also put up a shield and are also a kind of armor against kind of caring or being able to respond to people on the other side of that street as people that your job is to serve. And I think to me that's the thing I'm concerned about. We actually did a story in 2007 about Pittsburgh and this thing called the Bear, which is this armored vehicle or whatever. And it was about saturation patrols. And I reread it last night because I was just thinking about this military thing. And interestingly, although I remember the thing about the Bear being the kind of focus of the story because you had a big photo of it with like a cop like all like kitted out in his thing. But the thing that struck me was that what people were really complaining about in Pittsburgh at that time was not so much the technology, although that was the visible symbol of it, but these saturation patrols, which is they'd come into a neighborhood and
a black neighborhood. Excuse me, a black neighborhood.
Yeah, and in fact, though, the incident that really stood out was there a situation you may remember. There was a Corporal Picorni who was a state trooper who was killed, and they they celebrated or mourned the anniversary of his passing by going into a black community and doing a sweep there. And it was like the sweep was already...
What do you mean they celebrated?
The sweep was planned. They were going to go in and do this saturation patrol in like Homewood. They were going to do a saturation patrol in Homewood, and it was scheduled for that day. And they decided, in honor of Corporal Picorni, to dedicate that saturation patrol to his memory, even though Picorni was killed in a completely different part of town. He was killed out in Carnegie, out on the Parkway in Carnegie. So you take a thing, and if you really think about how pernicious that is, the people of that neighborhood had absolutely nothing to do
with the killing of that state
death.
Police officer.
Which is a tragic thing, but they had nothing to do with it. And so you go, and I guess from the police standpoint, this is how we show our whatever. And I totally understand the desire to commemorate a fallen comrade, but you don't do that at the expense of a community that had nothing to do with it. And I think the very sort of idea of linking those two things really rubbed a ton of people in the East End, the black neighborhoods of the East End, the wrong way, and I can absolutely understand why. And these are the things, at some point there's a chicken or egg scenario. There's a distrust. The police will tell you, well, we dress up like this and we get this equipment because the community doesn't trust us and we can't trust the community. And the community says, well, one reason we don't trust them is because they come in here looking like this is downtown Beirut.
That's right.
And that is and I don't know how you unpack that, but it's not. I don't think it'd be enough to just like take these guys out of the camo or even to get them out of the thing.
I noticed that the new what do we call him, the safety director?
Yeah, public safety director, Steve
has
Bukar.
put a memo out telling Pittsburgh police that if they're going to wear, and this is before this, that if they're going to wear bulletproof vests, they cannot be visible. They have to wear them under their shirts. Maybe that's a little part of
I would not be
pulling
surprised.
back. He also said he didn't want them wearing those baseball caps. He wanted them in, I think, old-fashioned police officer hats. Yay! I also think nurses should look like nurses, and nuns should look like nuns. I'm sick and tired of not being able to identify anybody anymore.
Is there a problem with fugitive nuns in your neighborhood? Is that just like run around all pell-mell, willy-nilly taking care of the poor?
We have a caller. Okay. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
How you doing today, guys?
We're doing.
I just want to throw this out to you. Do you think all this military stuff with our police is maybe they're preparing for something bigger?
Well,
there's a college professor in Indiana, I think he wrote books on this, where the uprising in this country is coming. I mean, with the job situation, with the blacks, I mean, it's possible if you think about it. It'd be like a powder keg, you know what I mean?
Well,
I mean, I don't totally buy it, but this guy writes books on this stuff.
That's a sort of a right-wing talking point you're putting out there, don't you think?
I don't know. It wasn't that long ago that some of my comrades on the left had similar concerns about police state and still talk about it from time to time.
Well, we've never seen anything that looks this much like that professor you're talking about. Might be correct. Things have gotten out of hand, and I don't know how you get control. You can only get control on a local level.
I mean, I think that's where it's got to start, right?
Well,
I mean,
the Fed's got to stop feeding these departments military equipment.
And if you add, and I've said this before, I mean, if you take that stuff, if you take the armored personnel carriers and the camo and the sniper rifles, and you add in the NSA and the surveillance that they do electronically of us, that's not like a great pair of dots to connect. And you know what? I mean, your job thing is certainly one example. I mean, I do worry about a time of environmental crisis and scarcity and all that stuff. I mean, I do think I don't want to be alarmist about it because, you know, you hate to kind of think that way about your fellow Americans, which these police officers are. But, you know, I do think that there's an old saying, we shape our tools and then our tools shape us.
Shape us. That's absolutely right.
Or put more simply, if you've got a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So if you give police the tools to do this stuff, it's unreasonable to expect them not to use those tools. And it's also unreasonable not to expect the community to respond. If you treat people like they're a subjugated populace, don't be surprised if they do
rise up.
Right. I agree with you there.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
God. Our main streets should be a place for businesses, families, and relaxation, not tanks and M16s. Who would think we would have to make a statement like that? And that's this Georgia congressman talking. Our local police departments are becoming paramilitary forces. There is no doubt about it. They look like them. They behave like them. We've talked a million times before about SWAT teams out of control. How often does you read in the paper, the Pittsburgh SWAT for no damn good reason? Caller, go ahead.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
This is Bree calling you from Pittsburgh, of all places.
Oh, my God. Well, welcome back to the U.S.
Yes, well, thank you very much. It's nice to be back. I have a little trouble hearing you, but, that's usually the case. A lot of callers seem to say that. But anyway, I wanted to be able to catch your show here. I've been here all week, but this is the first time I remembered at 10 o'clock to tune in. And this is not necessarily the subject that I would, weigh in on, but I just wanted to say hello because I'm in town.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, I agree. By and large, there was recently a viral video, as there are many of those now. There was a 20-something-year-old who was pulled over, and he kept the video running. And it was at a checkpoint. I guess they were checking for DUI, and basically he was obstinate. He didn't want to cooperate, and so they made his life very, very difficult. Even though he, of course, was within the bounds of his rights, and he didn't do anything wrong. But they. That's why, if I get pulled over, and it's very rare, I usually watch very carefully, but, I say, yes, officer, thank you, officer. I do the routine, and I don't push my luck because I don't want the hassles. I don't think that it would go so far as your last caller who said if the police says you're guilty. I think on small things that might be true, not on all the wide list that he had. There has to be certain evidence.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, but I guess my advice is I wouldn't be like that kid, the guy in the viral video. I would not tempt fate, as it were, because yes, in the immediate area where the police officer is operating, he is kind of the power, and you don't know to what degree, what kind of a day he has had. Right. We're all humans,
right?
And so. So I don't, and at the same time, I don't think that you can, you've got to be careful of the one bad apple does not necessarily represent the bunch, although the bunch may be ignoring that bad apple for a long time, and until something happens, which hopefully they will come up and be the good men, good women they're supposed to be, and help our society in the long run. That's what I'd like to think. Sure. I don't like to go down the pessimistic path that all departments are bad, and
Okay. All right.
Fair enough.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
thanks, Bree. Good to hear from you.
Thank you. Yes.
Bree is usually in the Far East, I believe.
No.
What we
The Far East.
The Far East.
Oh.
The Orient.
Oh, I thought you meant New Jersey. I'm sorry.
Well, he was in
King of Prussia?
Syracuse for a while, I think.
I would say to that, I mean, one thing that I guess I'm harping on this point. Matt Taibbi, who people may know is a writer for Rolling Stone, who's done a lot. He came up with the phrase "vampire squid on the face of humanity" to describe Goldman Sachs. He just has a book out now called "The Divide," and the argument of the divide is. People on Wall Street, the Wall Street bankers, they get away with everything as a matter of policy because the Department of Justice has said we won't prosecute criminally where we think a criminal prosecution could destabilize the U.S. economy. So it's another example of kind of too big to fail. But at the same time, there's more and more tolerance and lenience for those folks. For the rest of us, and especially if you're poor, and especially if you're poor and black, it's this different thing. And there are, I mean, in a way, okay, you get that argument. But what the strength of this book to me is he talks to he gets some just average people who have had these run-ins with police, and when you read about them, and I'm thinking again, it's about the stop and frisk in New York, the extent to which this is a daily factor in some people's lives that they're going to get frisked for no reason, and then they're sent on their way, and there's no record of it. He talks to some people who basically have said, "No, I want you to take me to jail. I want you to take me to jail now because I want there to be a record of this because I am tired of being detained in some police van for 3 hours and then sent on my way as if nothing's happened." Well, let's make clear who's detained. You're talking about black men. Yes, absolutely. And that to me is, and when you read it, when you read that stuff, and I just recommend the book for this alone, just to kind of introduce you to sort of what for a certain percentage of society is a daily occurrence.
It's like living in a terror state.
Yeah, it feels. I mean, when you read it, and you start to feel. And I started reading this book after that tragic situation where the guy died in the chokehold.
Oh yes, just another black man killed by police.
3 minutes away from saying this ends today, and you think that guy. That guy could easily have been interviewed by Matt Taibbi a week before and had the exact same kind of experience. And you just see I don't disagree with the caller at all. I mean, yeah, of course, you got to kind of watch your step because they're the ones with the guns and the handcuffs. But
look at all that. I mean, we can name names. I mean, there's that poor guy in Staten Island, dead, executed summarily for the crime of selling a cigarette. The poor kid now in Ferguson, executed summarily for the horrible crime of walking on the street. Johnny Gamage here, executed for the crime of driving a nice car through Brentwood. We could literally do this where we were talking about all these black men killed by police, executed by police, without benefit of charge, trial, or anything, any justice whatsoever. I bet we could fill a marathon 24-hour show just doing the black men who have died like that in the last
supposedly
5 years?
The number I have seen in recent days, and I can't vouch for it, but is that a black, I think, man dies at the hands of police in one set of circumstances or another, something like every 28 hours.
I'm surprised it's not more.
No.
I'm surprised it's not more. God almighty. I just have to, the only time I laughed about any of this was a quote I read today. This is a piece from the St. Louis newspaper, and it's quoting the Ferguson police chief.
Oh, God, I think I know what this might be. Go ahead.
And he was defending his militarized department, and he says, quote, "We have to respond to deadly force." That's not what you were thinking about. No, right?
No.
We have to respond to deadly force. And I thought, you effing idiot. what do you think all those people in the streets of your town are responding to?
Right.
They are responding to deadly force.
Right.
You idiot.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Mine was where he said, people just need to calm down.
And again, didn't we a few weeks ago, I was quoting the Old Bear Daily of Chicago during the 68?
Yes, yeah.
And is that not
Yeah.
just the classic, the police are not there to disorder, they are there to create disorder. I forget exactly, but I mean, it's just unbelievable. Every step. And you know, fine, we can beat up on this one inept little police department, but imagine. We've seen the Pittsburgh police sometimes operate in a stupid manner, and it's not necessarily departmental. It's these, maybe the bad apples,
Right.
But the bad apples, you see, are tolerated.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And they're protected. And they're aided and abetted.
Yep.
And this is a bad day for police all over this country. I saw a cop go by me this morning, and I thought, man, not a good day for you guys, is it?
Right.
Not a good day, because the people, are rising up, and amazingly, they're not divided like they usually are. It's pretty hard to find anyone who will defend you.
Right. Right.
I haven't dared looked at Fox News. I suppose they're still defending him. I mean, well, that's a big bunch of people. Roger writes, I think there is something about cops gearing up for a big blow-up by the populace. With cost of living outpacing jobs and pay, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and the middle class dropping to lower class, can't anyone see a French... I've been seeing a French Revolution for the last 3 decades. Well, maybe it's fine. I don't want it to happen.
Even a stopped guillotine is raised twice a day, Lynn, or something.
Yeah, right. I don't want it to happen, but it may be necessary. We don't want it to happen, Roger. I'll tell you why. Because if the people in this country rise up, what will come out of it will not be something you want to see.
It won't be Lynn and I, for starters.
That's right. And Roger,
the unarmed liberals.
No, it will not. It will not be. It will not be. But you can see a population rising up. He says, if greed continues to be the admired model held up in our society, along with lower taxes while our infrastructure crumbles around us, I think I'll have a drink. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. I completely understand.
And the amazing thing is how self-reinforcing the whole cycle is, right?
Right.
So the Post-Gazette, for example, has had a series about public-private partnerships. I don't know if you've read it, but a series of stories about, like, this is what governments do now because they're unable to raise revenue.
So they got to turn everything
So they turn everything over to the private sector, who then make a lot of money, who then use that money to prevent themselves from ever being taxed. And away it goes. And then the other side is now they're sitting on a big pile of money. And what do? They start tossing it into various kinds of investments that create bubble economies over and over again because they're chasing big returns in the stock market.
They're speculating left and right.
The bubble economy blows up. Innocent people get hurt. Communities are devastated. All of this stuff happens, and it's just this self-reinforcing cycle.
You know what, though? But that's not something people see.
No, it isn't. No, but it's there.
What's happened in Ferguson is something people see.
Right, yes.
They know things are wrong. They know they're under some kind of assault, that they can't get a foothold anymore, that their kids can't get, and it yields this pessimism and anger and rage. And I got news for you. I've often said, I don't like mobs. Mobs usually do not make good decisions, and this is very worrisome. And I thought the president's remarks and Holder's remarks were tepid, to say the least, and I rarely jump on Barack Obama, and I know he's on vacation, but damn it, I want something a lot more muscular. A lot more muscular.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and the whole complexity thing, it reminds me of there's that great scene in The Grapes of Wrath where the the farmer shows up, and there's a guy with a bulldozer who's about to bulldoze the land. And the farmer's got a gun, and he threatens to shoot the bulldozer driver. And the driver says, "You can shoot me, but there's a boss back in town. He's just going to hire somebody else to do it." And the farmer says, "Well, I'll shoot him." He says, "Well, you can go ahead and shoot him, but he's reporting to a boss out of Denver, and that guy's reporting to a boss in New York City. And then New York City has all these stockholders who are demanding it." And the farmer says, "Well, who do I shoot?" And that's the great conundrum. I mean, it's just
how do I protect myself?
Yeah, and mine and what for my family and everything else. And that is the challenge.
I have to tell you, the ACLU has got a lot of work on its plate. And I mean, I know it does. It's working overtime. There are so many efforts afoot, and many of them successful, to deprive us of our civil liberties. It is interesting that the usual divide, the right doesn't care about some of the ones that we care about, like voter ID and things like that. But this is one. They care about the Second Amendment, or let's say. We don't care about that one. And bango, we're together on something, and I do find that good.
Yeah. If it lasts.
If it lasts.
I do worry that you won't have to scratch too hard.
Well, no, and there will be forces, pulling us apart. But this is a bad day for the police all over this country, and it's a good day for Rand Paul.
Oh God.
I'm sorry. It's a good day for Rand Paul. You know what he's sounding like, and I do have to take a break. He's reaching out to the African American community.
Yeah, maybe.
No, okay. Here's Rand Paul. Given the racial disparities in our criminal justice system, it is impossible for African Americans not to feel like their government is particularly targeting them. Anyone who thinks that race does not still, even if inadvertently, skew the application of criminal justice in this country is just not paying close enough attention.
Yep.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is a potential Republican candidate for president.
It's not going to get him many votes in the primaries, though.
No. All righty, we're taking a break. Quick one. We'll be back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Howard Allen Events, producer of the country's most popular high-end festivals, returns to Walnut Street between South Aiken Avenue and South Negley Avenue in Shadyside. The 17th annual Shadyside The Art Fair on Walnut Street will be held August 23rd and 24th, transforming this popular downtown shopping district of Pittsburgh into an outdoor art gallery with an eclectic mix of the country's top established artists as well as new and emerging talent. Admission is free and open to the public. Showtimes for the Shadyside The Art Fair on Walnut Street are Saturday 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sunday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. For more information, log on to www.artfestival.com. Download the CP Haps app to find out what's happening in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text EVENTS to 77948 to download now. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
I want to point out, I think I did this yesterday, but I'm pointing it out again. Lest people start snickering at, this little podunk police department right outside of St. Louis and thinking about St. Louis police and Missouri as some kind of, I got news for you. This story could be right here.
Yeah.
Right here. And one of the things I heard some reporter say, he was just blown away by the number of jurisdictions. He said, I was talking to the congressperson from this who represents this area, and she says that there are something like 102 separate police departments in the district. I mean, you walk 3 blocks and you're in another district.
It's almost Allegheny County-like.
It is. That's what I'm saying. So St. Louis County, Allegheny County, there's absolutely no difference. Don't think for a minute there is. There is no difference here. None.
And in fact, I mean, if you look locally, where some of the more disturbing use of force stories have come out of places like Millvale and places like that. You know, that was where that person got tased while sitting in the police station, and nobody could figure out like what the hell the point of that was. Yeah, I mean, we've complained about Pittsburgh police tactics, but.
No, these little, and by the way, when a Pittsburgh cop, and we've mentioned this too, when a Pittsburgh cop ends up on trial because one too many beating up of somebody or depriving someone of their civil rights, but of course doesn't go to jail himself, we find out that he has been scarfed up by one of the little police departments in the area. So those little police departments are just full of folks that are bad apples. I'm sorry, but they are. They're not well trained either, and they too have this kind of crap. And that's who, I guess the first few nights, right, they called in all their fellow little bailiwick police departments, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you got. Hey, man! And you can see, they're hot to trot. They want to use their toys. You can't give toys like this to boys who like to play with these kinds of toys and expect them not to use it.
Just give them to us liberals.
Huh? Give them to liberals.
Eek!
Okay, here's the Tea Party guy who called at the beginning. I'm the guy who called earlier about our lawless and disorderly police. I disagree with the voice of reason always.
Always remember the saying, guilty until proven innocent.
Bad apple police? Okay, name any
I see. Good
of
apple
the good
police.
apple police. Well, no, come on. You don't think there's any good cops?
Yeah, oh no, sure. Yes,
Power corrupts. Know about the novel QB7 by Leon Uris?
I think my mom read that.
Anyone ever stopped by police knows you are guilty unless you prove you are innocent. And we have a judiciary afraid of the electorate that will automatically agree guilty. Well, yeah, every judicial candidate says, and I'm tough on crime, and I like. But you're right. So we sort of get what we're asking for.
I actually have seen one or two judicial candidates. I actually have seen one or two judicial candidates who and they didn't make it. In fact, I think it's safe to say none of them even got the party endorsement, if I could recall correctly.
I was just in Wisconsin, and they've got the political ads going nuts out there. And man, you still hear candidates, because Wisconsin is either really right-wing or it's really liberal. Right. And there still are people whose ads are, you cannot believe the liberal stuff that they put.
Give me an example.
Well, I can't remember. That's why I wouldn't. But I was dumbfounded. I thought, what? You would never hear an ad like
Vote
that.
Walker, all power to the workers.
You would never hear such an ad in Pennsylvania. Oh, my God. Where even Democrats sound like Republicans. God. Jeez.
Sometimes especially.
Yeah, right. I absolutely forgot how because you don't hear it here.
Yeah. No.
And I've been here now over 30 years, so I forgot
that
in some places in this country, liberals still speak out, run for office, and even get elected. Amazing.
Yeah.
You should hear it.
Yeah,
it
sounds.
I mean, I forget. I'm sorry. Wasn't paying more attention. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Could not believe what I was hearing.
I remember being in Madison.
Well, but
that's one of the enclaves, of course, right?
That's an enclave.
Yeah.
God knows Green Bay, Wisconsin is not. That's a conservative city.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Despite all the union whatever back there, history.
Well, excuse me.
Yeah, no,
Isn't
I
this
know.
Union City?
Yeah, I know.
It's Reagan Democrats.
Yeah. Well, outside the city. Especially.
We're taught 30 miles out of Green Bay is Appleton, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
who
right.
gave the world Senator Joe McCarthy.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Yeah.
That whole area of the state is extremely... You got Madison. And you've got parts of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But Walker could go down.
Yeah, I hear that.
Could go down. Could go down. Although I'll believe it when I see it.
me too.
Corbett could go down.
Corbett feels like he's going down.
Yeah, it sure does.
This thing with the education secretary or the
Oh my God, that's like
that's pretty good. Like somebody told me, like, oh, did you hear Ron Tamales resigned? And I was like, how could they tell? You know what I'm like? I haven't heard from that guy in days. Could something be wrong? This is like.
And the acting secretary should resign as well. And did you see Corbett said that he also deletes his emails?
Yeah, well, I think he says he never uses his official account to send them, and he doesn't send them very often, is I think what he said. Yeah. All right. Which Sarah Palin did the same thing. It was all barracuda.gov at yahoo.com, and that's how she conducted all of her business, so it couldn't be.
We should just add that Lyft and Uber, is operating legally right now for at least, 90 days or 60 days or something, and I don't care anymore if you want to know the truth.
Me either. Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you. No, I don't want to. No, I'm sorry. So I'm trying to think. I swear I had some other. Oh! My favorite story of the day.
Okay, I'm ready.
A lot of you missed this one. Dateline London.
Boop, 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 boop.
A pilot lost control of a plane.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Carrying more than 50 passengers. Oh, you did see it?
I think so. Keep going.
Carrying more than 50 passengers and crew after his prosthetic arm became detached.
I guess he forgot that item on the pre-flight checklist.
Well, first of all,
did you fasten the buttons? Yeah, whatever, probably. Let's just go.
Well, wait a minute. You can fly a commercial aircraft in England?
Oh, it's all buttons now. I'm not even sure you have to be sober anymore. Those things fly themselves.
Well, his arm became detached during stormy conditions. And I guess he managed to land the plane. They don't. What?
Yeah, nobody was harmed.
Nobody was harmed. But I guess I was just.
No, that really is something like out of that movie Airplane. You would it's just like this wooden arm on a throttle or something like that with a sleeve hanging off of it.
And I mean, oh God, you just glom onto stories like that in this difficult
times of woe.
Yes, right. Okay, and another pet peeve of mine, a group I can't stand.
PETA?
Anonymous.
Oh. I was wondering if we were going to talk about Anonymous today. Yeah. Sing it, sister.
Okay, I find it really interesting when a faceless, nameless group of...
Like Goldman Sachs. Oh, I'm sorry.
Of busybodies called Anonymous is falling all over itself to identify this police officer in Ferguson. It's interesting how they do not believe in anonymity
for the officer.
For anybody.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What they're often about is uncovering other people's identity while they hide behind those goddamn masks and the internet. Anonymous. Right? And so you are aware that Anonymous, whoever it is, came out and identified this police officer.
Yeah. Well, identified the wrong one, right?
They identified incorrectly.
Yeah. I will say, I mean...
come on, so you're going to defend Anonymous now.
Well, the question is like, who exactly are you defending, right? I mean...
Well, right.
Right, and that's sort of the challenge of the thing is there was a Twitter account that identified itself as affiliated with this movement. I mean, I don't even know what exactly you would call it. I will say I also saw other Twitter accounts with other people affiliated with Anonymous calling that guy out before anybody else even...
they're all at each other's throats. But that's also what Anonymous does all the time too.
Right, and that's the tricky thing.
They're a bunch of
I don't think that's true because I did see actually very responsible behavior from and I'll call out one by name on the Twitter feed, Operation Ferguson. I've actually been really impressed with their
doing
approach
good
to this stuff.
repertorial work.
I think because what they've basically said is, look, we have a name we believe is the person. We are not releasing it until we're sure. And frankly, we would prefer not to release it at all because we think that's the job of the government to do. And of course, they're absolutely right in all of that.
But see, they have no governmental entity.
They don't.
They
That's
have
true.
nothing. So anyone can be part of it. They have no control of any of this.
But here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm building to. There's a thing in this country called the media, which is made up of all kinds of different sources located in different places. Who knows who half of those people are, honestly, or who owns them. Sometimes the media makes a mistake. For example, calling out some poor bastard in Boston after the Boston bombing and saying, here's prime suspect number 1, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo, this guy. And yet, is the rest of the media, the traditional establishment media, feel as though it somehow reflects on us? That the New York Daily News or whoever blows its coverage and exposes this person to death threats?
It does. It harms you.
It maybe does, but nobody. But do I personally?
Spoken like a white heterosexual male. Because let me explain this to you.
Is that right, baby?
Yeah. Collective guilt is something white males know nothing about.
I understand that argument.
Blacks do, Jews do, any minority.
But we agree that that's a bullshit argument.
It doesn't matter. It exists. Okay. So I'm just saying, if you have this entity that has no structure and no government, which one of these
I guess the argument is, do you have an
people-
entity at all then, I think is the question. Is it fair? Because you're doing two things. On the one hand, you're saying they can't all be lumped in together because there's no government thing and there's no discipline and no, whatever. But on the other hand, you're lumping them all together to blame one for the actions of another. I agree with you. It's very tricky.
Let me just say this. I don't want to listen to anybody who will not identify themselves. I'm offended by the very... What? So, now you're going to what? So anyone...
I love when you do this. This is like, I'm always like, I'm in it now, Bubba. How many times have great stories been reported on the basis of an anonymous source?
Yes, right.
So let's throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Great stories that the anonymous source has been checked and then double checked. It's not the anonymous source putting it out. It's a trusted reporter that does.
I agree with that.
Okay.
And this is the challenge, right?
I don't like them, and I don't like those masks.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
I don't disagree. I mean, I don't like the masks either, and I am also somewhat uncomfortable with it.
You know who doesn't like those masks? Guy Fawkes.
He's been dead for 400 years.
He would be so...
That's right. Guy Fawkes was his real name.
That's right. He would be so pissed off.
I actually looked like this. That's my mugshot you're running around with. There you go. That should be the campaign. Guy Fawkes was his real name. A demand for accountability from the anonymous movement.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're in this weird historical moment. Is it fair? Is it fair to believe, as I've seen some anonymous people say, that part of that, in a way, they themselves are the sort of reflection of some of the very things we've been decrying earlier in the program, a sort of more militarized and less respectful of privacy, a government that's more militarized and less respectful of its own citizens' privacy or rights, and to some extent does acting anonymous. Let's remember, and I've never liked this argument before, because I've heard this argument like I've gotten into debates about online, anonymous comments even on our website and stuff like that. I've never liked this argument that, the founding fathers often wrote anonymously when they did the Federalist Papers.
I was going to say pseudonyms are
sure.
the same kind of thing.
Yeah. And I've never liked that, because it's like, back in those days, like King George could have you drawn and quartered or whatever.
why is it different now?
That's what I'm saying is to some extent I've come to this sense of like, you know what?
They're protecting themselves.
You know what? Maybe.
Okay. I just think
I understand. I'm with you. It's
potentially renegade. Well.
And of course the very platform, they shut down that Twitter account, but by the time Twitter took action, that tweet had been like circulated 100 bazillion times. So it's too late. That guy's name, who we shall not repeat for very good reasons, I think that guy is probably cowering in his basement somewhere, and he, from my understanding, didn't even work for an entirely different police department.
Wow.
Just some hapless guy who God only knows how his name even surfaced in the discussion. And now he's running around afraid. Yeah. And I feel for him as much as I do for that poor bastard in Boston who is recklessly identified by a New York tabloid wrongfully as a prime suspect. He too. And of course the difference is at least that guy can sue the tabloid. Mm-hmm. And if you're this police officer, I don't know what recourse you have, if you've got any at all.
So I have to tell you, I was under a lot of pressure over the weekend to go to a shooting range.
But from who? Who put the pressure on you?
My son, my brother.
Oh, everybody's calling us on our bluff. Is that what's going on here?
Well, no, not really.
Okay.
And I hate to... What happened, I shouldn't say this, a certain member of our family started thinking about, I'm going to get a gun.
It was your brother.
No.
Oh.
No.
Mr. Honor Culture.
No, but he loves it. No, he loves it. He already has one, I think. And he said, oh, good. He said, let's go. So he went off to, what's that, Cabela's?
Yeah. The sporting goods store.
Right. And I think he went, did he take my sister? Yeah, Susan, I think. I think they went off. They came back agog. They were, oh my God, and you could this and that. Yeah, and Susan was. Did
she have a good time? Was
she
was
totally
fun?
into it. Couldn't believe it. Handling some of these guns. Blah blah blah. My brother's. And then the next day, it was my sister's son who said, "You should go fire a gun. Let's go to a shooting range, okay?" So my brother gets all excited. His son gets all excited.
Great.
My son gets all excited. Susan, and everybody piles into various vehicles to head off to the family. It's called, I think, the family shooting range.
Because you go and shoot your family?
Right near our house. Their logo was such a riot. It's a profile of obviously a man like this, and then right under him is a profile of obviously a woman.
The little woman.
Lady, yeah. And then right under the little woman, there's a profile of a
baby carriage with an AK.
Yeah, right. A little kid.
And then a dog.
Right. So I didn't go. I think I was the only one.
You didn't go? Why didn't you go?
I didn't want to stand that noise.
Lynn, you're not going to get a better shot than this.
All right, a better shot.
As it were, yeah.
So they all went off.
Now we have to go, huh?
And they came back to a person, except one. Adrenaline going.
Yeah.
Loved it. Pictures taken like... proudly showing off their target thing.
That's great.
Unbelievable. No, the one who didn't like it and whose target thing was not shown off because apparently she never hit it.
Your sister?
Right.
That's I mean, I got to say, your brother has tenure and a firearm. That's like... That is a recipe for nothing to lose.
He's almost 70 years old, and he, in fact, drove his motorcycle without a helmet from Ann Arbor to...
Honor Culture.
Right? And so he's now made a gun enthusiast out of my son and out of his son.
Oh, dear, yes.
No, my son loved it.
Yeah, of course he did.
Do you think you would? Have you done that?
I have fired a weapon.
I
of course,
have
if you're
fired a weapon,
if you're in your early 20s or whatever, as a young man in the world, of course you're going to dig it. But I think we do have to go.
All right.
And it's funny. I keep seeing, not to plug my own newspaper much, but one of our advertisers, for whatever reason, is Anthony Arms, and there's some kind of like coupon in there that seems like a great deal.
Oh, is there really?
They keep running it, and I keep meaning to like cut it out and like so you and I can go, and I just keep forgetting. So I'll keep an eye open for it. There, we just gave a plug to Anthony Arms in West Mifflin. So there you go.
That's okay.
That wasn't even a read, folks.
No,
free media.
All liberals go, get your guns. Get your guns. I'm serious.
But the thing is, it's always a woman in the ad. So it's like they're actually turning me off. I'm just like, what kind of... Because I'm going to show up with like the coupon and be like, let me guess, you voted Obama both times.
I didn't go.
Yeah.
I went. I'm sorry.
Between now and your next family trip, we got to go. Like between now and Thanksgiving or whenever
All
you're
right,
planning to see him next.
Really?
Yeah, maybe we'll go shoot a turkey.
Okay.
You can go.
Speaking of that, there were like 7 or 8 of them on my mom's front lawn.
Yeah.
And and the poor hen, is that what they call it? Yeah.
No.
Had like a...
rough night, was it?
Had a really bad leg. Aw, but she was game.
This show started out pretty serious, and now in the last 5 minutes...
Well, that's the beauty of this program. Oh, Laura,
somebody's writing in to say
you should
definitely
Laura,
try the shooting
it.
range.
I miss not having a gun and have been thinking I would take a sporting. And Laura,
maybe we should get all your. Maybe we should do like another bus trip. We could all go just to set like all of your listeners or whatever. Just like show up by the dozen and just like mob
some local shooting range.
Yeah, have to be one with a large enough range to
fit our huge audience.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
Oh my God.
Well, I think this is a perfect circle. We started with how there might be a popular uprising. The police are out of control. Yeah. And I think it's time. And that how the right and the left are coming together on this. And there we go.
We'll do this, and then like a month from now, we'll do like our own like DIY guillotine class where everybody can sort of make their shunk.
And I think a knitting class as well.
Yeah. Scarves.
No, for
with the names of
exactly.
Right, exactly. For names of our future victims.
Tale of Two Cities we're talking about it.
There you go. We're bringing it all.
Literary site. We're really bringing it out. This is the beauty of this program. Okay?
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Chris Potter, for
Always
joining
good to be
me.
here.
As always, have a wonderful weekend and toodle. Ooh, keep your head down.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.